I got to know our next storyteller back in the day on the set of The Rise and Fall of Arturo Ui, in which we were both playing despicable gentlemen. To warm up, we got in the habit of having boxing matches with one another. I was always victorious. Apparently, it wasn't the first time he was set straight by someone smaller than himself. Let's hear Ryan Jackson tell it. There you go.
I'd like to start by addressing the elephant in the room about who's that guy. It was me at one point, so yeah. I've always depended on the kindness of strangers. As famously said by Blanche Dubois in Tennessee Williams' masterpiece, A Streetcar Named Desire, holds the same amount of weight as the famous line delivered to me by my professor and mentor, the late Dr. Sandra Hardy. Don't be an asshole. Up until that very moment where she firmly stated those words to me, I thought I was pretty good. I had a good upbringing. I did fairly well in school. I had a lot of friends. I liked to laugh and have fun. I was very active in community theater, and I wanted to pursue my dreams of being an actor in college. It's all I really know how to do, and it's where I was most comfortable in my skin, just being in someone else's skin. When I arrived at the University of Maine in the fall of 2008, I knew that I needed to seek out the theater department and all that it had to offer me. I did just that. One of my very first classes was script analysis. It's where you read a new play each week, and we were to dissect and study the subtext and all the nuances of the play and yada, 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 all that. The class served its purpose to help us understand the text more so that we could be better performers. One week in particular, we were reading Streetcar Named Desire, and now I'll admit I didn't read it. Just try and tell me one college student who did everything that their professor asked of them. I mean, wrestling was on that night, so. Up until that point, I hadn't really been called on much, but Dr. Hardy was feeling particularly lucid with her question asking and singled me out. Now, come on, I'm an actor. Of course, I can stumble my way through this, and I did read the Spark Notes before I got to class. She stood there with like this stone-like gaze and just listened to me prattle on about Blanche and her problems. And I mean, to set the stage here, this woman was 5'0", Jewish lesbian who had more doctorates and anything and everything. She was a tour of force. She was very intimidating. Once I had finished, I took a dramatic pause, and then she in turn took a dramatic pause. You're a bullshitter, aren't you, Ryan? You bullshit your way through high school, you bullshit your way to college, and now you're bullshitting me. Well, guess what, buddy? I'm the queen of bullshit, so how about you knock it off? Needless to say, I didn't speak for the rest of class. As we were leaving, Sandra goes, Ryan. And I turn around, and she promptly slapped me across the face. You can laugh more, that's fine. And then she looked me in the eye, and she said, don't be an asshole. I wrote that on a sheet of paper, and I slapped that above my dorm room door, and I looked at that every single day, and I'll never forget it. Now, I may not always depend on the kindness of strangers, but what I've always done is I've surrounded myself with the most extraordinary people. I'm so lucky in my life that I've met some of the most talented, funny, compassionate, nurturing, intelligent, down-to-earth human beings. It's amazing how I have such a knack for finding them, and I choose to keep them around as long as humanly possible. It was because of that moment, that slap from Sandra, it changed my whole view on life. It made me appreciate taking the time to do things and do the things that I care about and the things that either asked of me or were presented to me. Even up to my last days of college, Sandra was pushing me to just do it. I would flounder and hem and haw about what I was going to do post-graduation and all that, and I felt like I didn't have good footing. But she told me to just keep being me. Don't be an asshole. Side note, I'll never forget, the hardest part of writing my thesis was my 5-year plan. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do after college in the next 5 years. And every week she's like, Ryan, have you wrote your 5-year plan? I'm like, no, Sandra, I'm getting to it. And Ryan, have you wrote your 5-year plan? No, Sandra, I'm getting to it. And finally she just goes, just write it. And I did. All it took was just a little push. Now, look, I don't think that I was being an asshole. But she was right. I didn't just take the time or put in the effort. From there on out, I always just made the point to give the best version of myself that I could to everyone and everybody around me. I ended up with a steady job at home in a beloved spot in the community and working with a professional theater company just 2 towns over and meeting some of the most incredible people I have ever met in my life, who started out as strangers. I guess in a way I have always depended on the kindness of strangers, and Dr. Hardy certainly was to me the first time I met her. Fast forward, years after script analysis class, after planting my feet and just being me, and cementing myself in a community that I grew up in, that I cared about. A barista, an improv teacher, a coordinator, staying the course and just always remaining humble. I finally got called up to my dream job, working at the Strand, working in a theater. The stars aligned and I was finally able to find my purpose in life, and that's to keep making people smile. If it wasn't for Sandra on that day taking the time to really set things straight with me, who knows if I would have ever ended up here. I'm sure I wouldn't have felt the sharp pain of the slap that she delivered across my face of her palm hitting me, but I would have learned that you just need to be a good person. Do all the things, even the ones that may not be fun at the time, but it'll pay off. I stayed true to that, and I'm happier than I ever have been. Now, would an asshole say that?